how many of you have presented an idea? How many of you have been ignored, dismissed, or not taken seriously when you presented an idea, made a suggestion, or gave some opinion, perhaps in a meeting or with friends and family? How did it make you feel? Have you ever done the same when a friend, colleague, or family member offered their idea or suggestion and you ignored or dismissed it, perhaps even without really trying to understand their idea? We all have at some point, haven't we? A few months ago, I had the good fortune and privilege to interview Karen Armstrong, the internationally acclaimed scholar and winner of the 2008 TED Prize. During the interview, what struck me was her emphasis on the golden rule. We all know the golden rule, which Armstrong explains comes in two flavors. The positive, always to treat others as we wish to be treated ourselves, or the negative, never impose on others what you yourself do not desire. But generally, we think of the golden rule as how we physically treat and behave with someone. What I want to do is to consider how to apply the golden rule when it comes to the way we treat other people's ideas. In other words, treating other people's ideas as you wish they would treat your ideas. So, how do we treat other people's ideas when they're different from our own? Do we treat them with the respect they deserve, or do we sometimes belittle or mock them? But before I get into how the golden rule applies to people's ideas, I want to first talk a little bit about the word respect and what it really means. Because it's a nice, warm, fuzzy platitude that's bandied about a lot these days, but I think without really understanding what it means at a practical level. We all know we should treat other people's differences, like race, culture, religion, with respect. That is, differences people are born with and have no control over. This is generally called pluralism. But what about our ideas? Even though we're not born with them, we all have different ideas, opinions, perspectives, and these should also be respected. This too is pluralism, intellectual pluralism. But why are we told to respect different races, but are generally never told to respect, say, different eye colors or hair colors? We're born with both, aren't we? In other words, what's special about skin color we're supposed to respect, but not eye or hair color? Why is eye or hair color not even on our radar? Is it because race indirectly suggests a different culture, and people fear cultures different from their own? Or is it because some cannot simply accept people of different races, white, brown, black? Why would we treat someone differently based on something they're born with and have no control over? Again, if our eye or hair color is not a problem, why is the color of our skin? So now back to respecting these differences. What exactly does this even mean? I think we can only truly respect a difference when we hold the other race, religion, culture as equally valid and legitimate to our own. From this view, respect really means that no race, religion, culture is elevated above another as superior. Now, if we think about it, isn't that the golden rule? We don't want others to treat their race, religion, culture as better than ours. So we don't treat ours better than theirs. And this, I would argue, is how we really respect our differences. So, when I talk about respect as it applies to pluralism, all I'm talking about is how to apply the golden rule. Now, you might be wondering, what does this all have to do with intellectual pluralism and its domain of ideas, opinions, perspective, and even values? The answer is everything. We often think letting someone speak and hearing them out is respect. But if we're not sincerely interested in changing our position based on what we hear, then it's not really respect. All we're doing is being polite and humoring the person because we've already decided our position is more valid, legitimate, or correct than theirs, even before they've said anything. So I'm suggesting let's apply this notion of respect, or really the golden rule, to ideas, opinions, perspectives, and the whole intellectual space in a practical and sensible way. If, when I talk about respecting the items shown in the left box, I mean no race, religion, culture is better or superior than another, then, when it comes to intellectual matters, respecting intellectual matters, shown in the right box, it simply means no idea or perspective should be assumed de facto to be superior than another. Now, just to be clear, and so there's no misunderstanding, there will always be fringe elements of society which advocate opinions and ideas that negatively disrupt the social fabric. Notions such as bigotry or discrimination, the equality between ideas and opinions I'm advocating for, of course, does not apply to these socially irresponsible opinions and ideas. However, there are times when it is necessary to impact the social fabric, but in a positive way. Gandhi, Martin Luther King, the struggle for women's rights, among other examples, all impacted the social fabrics of their times. But these movements improved the human condition and promoted human dignity because all they really did was move society forward by shaking things up in a positive way, rather than negatively disrupting society. Then there are other elements of society, other fringe elements of society, which advocate opinions and ideas like the world is flat, which are contrary to objective, established facts. These fringe opinions are also not obviously valid to established facts, but we do hold the right of the individual to have their own opinion. So rather than try to seek some idealistic, utopian principle for intellectual pluralism that is universal and does not need any exceptions, let's not get hung up on the fringe and let exceptions drive the rule for the majority. Let's not use fringe examples as an excuse to avoid engaging constructively with the 95, maybe even the 99% of the rest of society's valid, legitimate, and differing perspectives on various issues. Let's not throw out applying the golden rule to ideas, or if you will, applying intellectual pluralism just because there are a few fringe exceptions. But we still have a problem. If you look at my diagram, I said the left box were things we're born with. But we're born into, not with, a culture, nationality, language, religion. And we can actually, to some extent, change these. They're not locked in like race. So I'm going to fix my diagram and move these to the other box. Because if we think about it, culture, nationality, language, religion are really just intellectual products created by a group of people and over time accepted as the norm by those people. They are, in other words, just proxies for a collection of ideas, opinions, perspectives, and even values. Now, something interesting just happened. I would say pluralism is concerned with two broad categories of differences. On the one hand, they're natural differences, those we're born with and have no control over, in the left box. Then there are differences that arise from some kind of human intellectual effort, the right box. Notice how almost everything important, everything that makes us human, culture, nationality, ideas, opinions, perspectives, are all in the right box. It almost seems like the respect for differences is really about respecting intellectual differences. Because again, if we think about it, one of the only natural differences that has caused any kind of war or major conflict that at least I can think of is skin color. But no end of wars or conflict have occurred due to culture, nationality, ideas, opinions, perspective, and even values. Now, if we truly respect intellectual differences when we make them equal and don't elevate our ideas or perspective as above others, then there's a catch. It means we have to accept we may be wrong, and they may be right. Or, of course, we both may be wrong. Or, in subjective issues with nuanced situations, we both may be right for different reasons. Because in those cases, there isn't a right or wrong answer. Take some laws, for example. These change over time and differ between countries, so don't even have an objective, factual end result. Subjective matters, by definition, will never have a factual end result, but only a panoply of various perspectives. But I'll be the first to admit, it's not easy. It's not easy to admit we could be wrong about something. We all want to believe our ideas, opinions, or perspectives are better than someone else's. Look around you. Do you think you have ideas, opinions, perspective that differ from anyone else in this room? I would say each one of us has a unique perspective that differs from others in this room. So, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to frame these differences? Are we going to let our egos carry the day? I would argue the real test of a truly mature and intellectually pluralistic mindset is one that is able to genuinely and humbly engage with other views. Or as Oscar Wilde said, playing gracefully with ideas. Because more often than not, progress has come from socially responsible, divergent views we'll often disagree with. Disagreement is an inevitable part of the human condition, but is often conflated with conflict. Society has equated peace and progress to the absence of conflict, or more precisely, suppressing or avoiding disagreement. But disagreement is simply an innate aspect of thinking. Without difference, intellectual diversity or pluralism is impossible. Intellectual diversity means disagreement. Peace and progress, thus, can never be achieved by suppressing disagreement, but by embracing and respecting it. So, if anything, intellectual pluralism and applying the golden rule to the intellectual domain is perhaps the foundation on which the best and fastest human progress rests on. But it starts with you and me. We need to have the courage to sincerely engage with other views despite our conditioning to see things in a certain way. So next time we're discussing an issue at work, at home, with friends, and family, simply remember, if it's an issue that's not an established fact, we may not be any more right than the next person. That's not to say we may be wrong, but if we're talking about respecting other views, and we cannot unquestionably prove our view as the only right answer, which again is impossible in subjective matters, then truly respecting someone means remembering to admit to ourselves, we may be wrong and they may be right. And that's all the golden rule says. People would like their ideas and opinions to be considered as valid and legitimate as we value our own, and do not wish them to be belittled or dismissed. So before you say something negative to someone about their idea, always think about how you'd feel if someone told you the same. Treat other people's ideas as you wish they would treat your ideas. Thank you.